with that, are we ready to officially begin?
Oh yeah, let's go.
Okay, we'll turn it on over to you guys and have you introduce yourselves, and then we will move into our conversations.
Dale, why don't you go first?
Yay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Dale Fong-Frederick. In the SCA, I am known as Jibril al-Dakhil. I live in New York City in the East Kingdom, and I am the current chair of the board of the SCA.
I'm Dan Watson. In the SCA, I'm known as Bartholomew Hightower. I live in the Kingdom of Artemisia, and mundanely, that is Logan, Utah, in the Shire of Côte du Ciel, which I think it's the best shire in the known world, to be honest. We don't tell other people that, but amongst ourselves, we figure we've got it. I'm a director of the SCA. I just stepped down from the chairmanship. I have another quarter to go, and then I'll be stepping down from the board at the end of the April meeting.
Hi everyone, I'm Brigid Costello, known in the SCA as Tournai. I'm coming to you from the amazing Kingdom of Lockhart, which for those of you who are unsure where that is Australia, New Zealand, and we keep telling people the parts of Antarctica. Kaid and I have had discussions about this at times, so very excited to join you all today.
Thank you. So how do we kick this off, other than introductions? Again, your host here, we are the Baron and Baroness of the Barony of Terra, Pomaria. We posted many classes from individuals all around the society, and we are very happy to have you here today.
So I have some questions. So one of the big questions that can come up is, what exactly is the purpose of the BOD? What all do you guys do? Just so we have a clear understanding, because some of us watching this class, either now or later, will be brand new and have zero clue as to what the structure is.
I can take a shot at that. Dale, do you mind?
Go right ahead.
So the board of directors is the group of people that is responsible for the corporation, and to making sure primarily we make sure that the corporation is on good footing, that we have in place all the policies that we need in order for us both to play the game and to take care of all the things that are mundanely associated with what we do. And the board acts as a final arbiter in in cases where we have the officers come to us and ask us things, or we have proposals that come forward in front of the board, and we're sort of the final stop to vote on whether or not something is going to be included in SCA policy or not. That's really our primary goal, is to set policy within the SCA so that the corporate officers and the regional directors, otherwise known as the Kingdom Seneschals, can do their job correctly within our game.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. And you had all three introduced your various roles. Can the three of you give us kind of overviews of what those rules mean? I mean, does Dale stand on you as you know, he has a mud puddle to walk across, you lay yourselves down, and then he triumphantly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Excellent. Excellent. Okay, that was
All
my
the time.
understanding as well. I can see his face.
Exposed my secrets. As Dan said, the board's job is to really make all the legal decisions, to sort of make the policy decisions. My job as chair is to preside over the quarterly meetings, and if we have conference call meetings in between those quarterly meetings, to sort of make sure that the agenda is set and the rules are followed, and the board will then vote on things to determine what those decisions on policy and legal matters will be. Dan?
Yeah, and as a director, my role is, I have a few things. First of all, we do meet regularly, and the primary business of me as a director happens during those quarterly meetings. And we put a tremendous amount of time in front of them. We have reports from all the kingdom officers. We have reports from corporate officers, the treasurer and the vice president of operations. And the preparation materials can be quite lengthy. And the term, we don't actually print them out anymore. Thank goodness we have them on the file drop now, but they can be several hundred pages. It's usually a couple of days worth of reading and preparation to get ready for these meetings. And then when we get together, we talk about the issues, we talk about what's best for the society and for the participants, and we try to make the best decision that we can. In addition to that, I have ombudsman duties. So I'm the ombudsman for I believe 3 SCA kingdoms now, and also the peerage and census committees. And so as an ombudsperson, it's my job to both represent the corporation to those committees and kingdoms, and to bring concerns of those kingdoms and committees back to the board when the normal chain of command doesn't work. So it's sort of like an extra step that we do. I would say, along with the ombudsman duties, there's a general desire to be responsive to participants when they send email to us. We try to listen to it. And if we can answer, then we try to. And if we can't, or it's difficult to, many times we have to give a polite reply saying thank you. We are reading it. We're reading your input. Everybody gets a chance to read it. So that's in a nutshell, those really are the duties that I have as a director.
Can I just add one more thing? One of the most important things that we do is that we approve the society officers and the corporate officers. They do the bulk of the work, as Brigid is going to tell you in just a minute. They do the bulk of the day-to-day work. They make the society function. And every quarter, as Dan indicated, we kind of look at the work that they did. They give us a quarterly report, and we review that and approve their actions or disapprove, as the case may be. But generally, our officers do an absolutely fantastic job, and we're just kind of smiling and nodding our heads and going, "Yay, thank you." That's it.
Excellent.
Thank you.
And now Brigid's going to tell us how true that is.
Or
Oh yeah, so incredibly true. Yes. No, thank you very much, Dale and Dad. That's very kind. The board does work very hard. I am going to actually put that out there as well. But we do more of the day-to-day stuff. So from the side, if you think about it in some ways, if you think of the society as a car, like the chair and the board are driving and we're the engine. So your corporate officers, it's a bit like in a kingdom. You know, you've got those people who lead, but also all the people who make things happen. So our job is to keep making sure that everyone is in a position to play their game in the best way possible. My job is I'm the current communications officer. And so it's how do I make sure that you know what the board needs you to know, that all of the information that you need to be able to do what you want to do is easily accessible and in a format that is best placed. And how do we make sure that we're telling other people about how awesome the SCA is? So those are the sort of key things around communication. It's about basically sharing our place in the world.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. Thank you for spreading the word fame of the SCA. So you're all in these positions now. Did you again have to walk all over the bodies of your slain enemies to get to these positions? I mean, I do not remember having thrown a pebble into a bowl to elect you. What exactly is that for? Not in a bad way. I'm just trying to come up with all the ways that you can choose leaders. So how did you get to this point? Was it is it the end of a long career of service, or is this something that I know sometimes we're fascinated by surprising pieces of the SCA?
I think did some watery tart throw a sword at you from a pool of water, or how did you get to your position?
I'd love to relate my experience. So actually, yes, I did win the lottery. No, there was every now and then back in pre-COVID times, every now and then members of the board would get together for what is known as a meet and greet. And they would pick a regional war and send a couple of representatives out, 2 or 3, and to meet with the folks and offer a little class on what it is to be on the board and things of that nature. And they're also, when they do that, they're also looking for good candidates. And so in my particular case, they came to a local war that we have in Artemisia, Harvest War. And they showed up and they had a little seminar, and then they started asking around who would be a board member, and several people outed me, put my name in the hat for me, and it didn't take very long for them to come and talk to me. You know, it was like, oh, Bartholomew, yes, we'd like to talk to you. And it was a little intimidating, to be honest, but we had a nice conversation. They got a chance to meet with me, and they encouraged me to submit my resume and both my Monday, my regular resume, and to give that to the board for consideration to become a board member. And that's really where the process starts, is that people decide either nominate themselves or other people nominate them. And then they apply to be on the board of directors. We take a look at all of the applications that come in. We have a database. We review it regularly to look at the people that are there. And then we have a process where we discuss the individuals that are there to try to decide who we would like to invite to become a board member. And it takes quite a bit of work to do this, just in order to make sure everything is compiled and ready to go for the board members to look at. We have special meetings, or meetings are specifically designated for talking about individuals. We elicit letters from other people that know them. Well, we don't individually go around, but in general, we ask for commentary for people that are have been nominated to the board. And we read those letters and discuss them, and we make a decision. We extend an invitation, and then if the person accepts, then they become a board member elect. And so they sit on the board for 3 to 6 months, depending on when they're invited. As a board member elect, a non-voting member of the board, to sort of learn what is going on, for the ropes. And then as a director steps down, they step up, and they will serve on the board for a period of 3.5 years. I have 7 board members, and every 6 months someone comes on, and every 6 months someone drops off.
Dan, you and Dale are both peers. Do you have to be a peer to be on the board?
Not at all. We have 2 board members right now who are 2 board members who are not peers, or is it 1 now? I know Natalie is not a peer. Yeah, Natalie is not a peer. It's not required. A large part of being on the board is volunteering for the heat that you're going to take for the decisions that you make. And it's also your mundane knowledge, your ability to work cooperatively with others, even when you disagree, and your willingness to put in the time and the effort to think through all of the different structural challenges that we face in the game, as well as the legal challenges that we have to address as the board. And your status, for lack of a better word, in the game doesn't have as much bearing on that as you would think. What we have seen is that we have had a large number of peers, but that's because they're the people who tend to stick with the game for a long time and invest in doing a lot of the work. But it's absolutely not required. And we absolutely welcome people who have been here for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. Bring your fresh ideas.
Rather than having the Lady of the Lake, her arm clothed in shimmering samite, hold aloft Excalibur from the water, how did you arrive on the board?
Well, the gentleman of the lake threw his sword at me, and I readily accepted. That being said, for me, I had never really had an interest in the board. I didn't really follow much of it. I was the kind of member who just thought of the board as those people. And I didn't give it a lot of attention, but someone came to me and said, hey, you know what, you would be really good at this. You speak really well in the peer circles, and your opinion is valued. And the board needs people who are willing to volunteer to do the hard work. So I was like, all right, fine. I submitted my application, and I figured, yeah, I'd hear from them, maybe, maybe not. I had served before as the East Kingdom Marshal, and I had some exposure to the board, but I was just like, yeah, they move slow. I don't expect to hear from them. Little did I know, not maybe a few weeks or months later, I got a call for an interview, and I interviewed, and I was like, I guess I'll hear from them in a couple of months, maybe years, who knows? Then I got a call and said, hey, want to join? I was like, wait, you mean like now? All right, I guess. And then I came and sat and watched Craig Carter and Dan and the rest of the crew run the board.
Excellent. And it looks like we have a question here from Atia Prima, and that is, she's the Kingdom Seneschal here in Ontier. She says, you touched on this briefly. Can you explain a little bit more on the role of an ombudsman and when an ombudsman should be contacted? And then I'll have Brigid tell us her story. Or vice versa. We'll get back to that one.
So
I was going to go to Dan for the ombudsman question as the most experienced in that space.
I'll give it a shot. I'm still working out what an ombudsman is and does, but for myself, I look at the role of ombudsman from my experience as a faculty member at a university. And in that role, I play an ombudsman on several tenure committees. And my role in those meetings is to make sure that policy is followed, that the tenure committee that is deciding on the future of a candidate is that they stay within the rules, that they don't discuss things that they shouldn't discuss, that they make sure it provide opportunities for the candidate to ask questions. And I also, from the candidate's point of view, I make sure that the candidate provides information. So my goal is really is to look out for the interests of both the university and look out for the interests of the candidate. Now, if I move that over into the SCA, my role as ombudsman there is with the kingdoms and with the committees slightly different. With the kingdoms, typically this provides the SCA with a out of the chain of command feedback loop, so that if there is a problem that involves people that are in the chain of command, as one example, then like a Kingdom Seneschal or Atia or anything like that, then that can provide an opportunity for me to go back to the Society Seneschal and say, hey, can you look at this? From the committee perspective, then there's a little more back and forth that's going on. The board has several committees that do its work so that they don't have to spend time getting down in the weeds. They really shouldn't do that. But the board needs to provide direction to the committees. And so they will give feedback to me as the ombudsman to go to the committee and say, hey, this is what the board wants. We want you guys to produce something like this. Can you create a proposal and bring that back to the board so that they can look it over? Now, I will say one thing about the ombudsperson duties, and that is that it's my goal typically as an ombudsman to get out of the loop as quickly as possible. So I might ask someone, a corporate office, to look at something. I might ask the committee to do something, but then I really have no authority in doing any of those things. And so my goal is really to make sure that things are working as they should, and then back out of the picture as quickly as possible.
I can just touch on that also. I think that this is one of those things that I think is a little bit different for the different board members, because what the ombudsman role isn't really clearly defined. For me, I see it just as facilitating communication. So if something pops up that we feel that the Kingdom Seneschal or the Crown should know, I might be the one to convey that information to them. If they have information they want to bring to the board, they might come to me and I would provide that information to the board on their behalf or to the right officer. But I've always felt that it's not my job to step into giving guidance or direction in any way to the kingdoms or the committees, but just really relaying information. And I think the level of involvement that different board members have a different, it kind of relates to their level of comfort with the people that they're dealing with and their style of communication. But for me, it really is just about facilitating information.
Thank you.
Before we go to Brigid, I wanted to ask, so you kind of touched on it a little bit. You know, sometimes you're dealing with hundreds of pages that you're dealing with at a board meeting, but how do we compile those policies and changes? I mean, is it just somebody in a dark room somewhere writing down, this is how I'm going to make everybody do what I want to do?
With a dip pen.
Yep, dip pen.
Don't forget that.
But I mean, how do those policies actually wind up in that hundreds of pages? Is it?
Yeah, yes, that is exactly it. There was someone in a dark room.
Yeah.
No,
We have Adobe and Adobe gets no sock.
Excellent. I'm glad to know that. Don't send him a sock. I know you were thinking about it.
Right.
But I mean, understanding that I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so I've had a policy passed by the board since starting my various roles within the corporate office. And so basically what it starts with initially is a need. So there's a need identified by the society, quite often in response to changing environments and things like that. And they look at going, well, does the existing structures, etc., meet that need? You know, and quite often the answer is a lot of the time the answer is yes. But then also you go, actually, no, we're not providing enough information. The environment has changed. There are different mundane law requirements that we need to be able to articulate so people understand the commitments. So what you then do is you then put it together. It's either the board either says, hello, officers, would you please look into this matter so you can provide us with something to look at? Or the officer themselves goes to the board, hey, I've had a look at this. I believe that this is the situation. Are you happy for me to continue working on this? And the answer is either, if the board tells us, the answer is, of course, yes, we are. We will look into that for you. And also, and if the officers have explained it well, the board goes, yes, please investigate this further. Depending on the type of policy, what then happens is related to, there are various requirements in our governing documents for what's involved with actually getting policies passed. So, for example, the social media policy doesn't sit right at the top of Corpora because while it's very important in all of our lives, it's not the main point of what we do. You know, that's all about the game itself. So while so there are slightly different requirements for lower tier policies than it is, like a change for Corpora, for example, has very specific requirements about going out to the populace, making sure that people have an opportunity to comment on it, to bring that feedback in. And so that can quite often involve, like, a committee will be formed, people will put together different proposals, the board will consider that, we might survey the populace to actually see what our members and participants are actually feeling, you know, and we'll come back and we'll shape the documents and we'll work on that. And it gets to an eventual point where at some point it goes to a board meeting and the board makes a decision in terms of a vote. And those votes are recorded. So all of those are actually, you can see the voting history in the minutes on SCA.org. And it goes through that process. So the first thing is, while the board can move very swiftly if there's times of need, and those are quite often around safety or immediate sort of fiduciary / financial responsibilities, because we're really keen to make sure that the board is in the position to do the best possible thing that they can with the information they have. It's quite often that slower process to make sure that we're going through the right information and that we're actually communicating and hearing from people. So it's, as you can see, it can be a bit of a lengthy process. And while at times when I hit them with yet another, document with multiple appendices and various pieces of evidence and everything, they would quite like to just wave the sword or bring down the stone tablet from on high. There is way more paperwork involved and a lot more thought and consideration. Like, you'll see drafts, you'll see language, all of that. So yeah, it's very much about that sort of need.
And I'd just like to add on to that, Brigid, that what kinds of things make up policy within the SCA, because we do actually have documents that are labeled policies, but other things that are in the SCA that are part of our policy would be the officers' handbooks, such as the Marshal Handbook, the kingdom laws, all the kingdom laws, those form policies within the various kingdoms within the SCA. All of these things will eventually come to the board for approval. And it makes for a really boring part of the quarterly meeting. We've had a chance to look at this, review them, ask questions. Sometimes we send it back. Usually by the time it gets to a public board meeting, we're all pretty satisfied that it's ready to be voted on.
And I'm just going to tag in for one final small part. So you guys all know about our society officers, you see them all the time, but there are a couple of people who are hugely important in the corporate end, the legal side and the operational side of our corporation, and that is Leslie Luther Fulton. She is the executive assistant of the board of directors, and Louise Ducret, who is our vice president. They are extraordinarily important in making sure that we stay on top of our policies, our warrants, our legal requirements, our financials. They are just an absolute dream in terms of making sure we have the information that we have, making sure that the board is organized, and making sure that we meet the legal requirements that we have to meet in the mundane world.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you.
And I want to circle back really quickly. Brigid, you had talked about having some previous experience with the administrative portion of this, and I have not forgotten that we have not yet drilled you on whether it was the arm-clad and shimmering Samite or the spear chucked at the swords chucked at your head that brought you into the board of directors, or work. The communications role. Sorry.
Yes. My disclaimer is, oh no, I'm not on the board. I am one of their many, small number of hardworking support staff in ways. You all think you didn't really focus on the board? Try being from Australia. Australia and New Zealand as Lockhart, we're actually affiliates to the game. So that means that there's an Australian board and there's a New Zealand board. Apparently it's quite amusing. We call them the Aussie board for the Australian side of stuff. So we knew about the board, and I've been playing long enough since that we were part of the West Kingdom. So when we were a principality back in the day. So I'd kind of had a vague idea of what was going on, and that there was this overarching group of people that directed things from on high and all of this stuff, but I hadn't really paid that much attention more than just the normal sort of stuff. Same way most of us do when we're not actively involved in administration. And then I became, I was a Lockhart Kingdom officer, and it meant that I started having a lot more to do with other known world counterparts. And as part of that, I got introduced to sort of the society level equivalents of the office that I was involved in, which was social media. And I sort of went, okay, cool, everything. And my day job means that I have a range of skills that were really relevant to that sort of portfolio in terms of the marketing and communication and use of social media, and a whole lot of strategy work. So it was sort of like, okay. So when Ross Thompson, who was the predecessor, sort of went, hey, I'm looking for a deputy and I thought you should come. My first question was, really? You know what time zone I'm in? And they went, no. So it was at that point, I sort of went, okay, I'll do a bit of thinking about this, and went, no, this is somewhere where I can help. And I think that question, that sort of thing of this is somewhere I can help, is probably the main thing that any officer at any level of the game that we play, you know, at our club, really answers. It's the yes, I think I can help. And I'm going to do a big plug at the moment for, if you've never considered being a board member or a corporate officer, or if you've like spoken to somebody and gone, wow, they're really, oh no, I think they'd be really great, nominate them for the board. They get the opportunity to say no, that's really important, but they also get the opportunity to say yes. And our board and becomes really reflective of the people who play our game at that point. Yeah, it's pretty much about that. So then as a corporate officer, to just round up the process, it's actually a bit of a job application, because you are fulfilling a job. It's not a paid job, but you are fulfilling a job. So much like Dan and Dale, I put together my modern resume, and I put together my SCA resume, and I sent that in with a letter of expression of interest. The board considered me for the role, and eventually were crazy enough to say yes. They think that. And not only they were crazy enough that when I put my hand up to do another job, thinking I could help in a slightly different way, they also said yes to that. So it's a bit like with the corporate officer roles, if you think about it in terms of the fact that this is an office and we're the interface between the in-game and the modern administrative context. Some of our roles have more administrative in that modern environment than others, and others are more in that operational policy. And I put a little bit of a guide just in the chat, which is policy is really that really high level, what we will do. Operational policy sort of says, and the organization says we will do it in this way. And then you have the procedure that said, these are the steps that are required. So you just get those sort of elements. So really, for me, my skills were appropriate. I saw there was a need. I thought I could help. And I was lucky enough that the board said, no, actually, we think her skills are what are required at the moment, and we're going to give her the opportunity to help. Dan, did you want to add in?
Yeah, I've got several things I want to throw in there. Before I forget, I want to say first that Brigid, we've never really noticed that Brigid lives, what, 6 to 8 hours time difference from us. And so we don't care if we have a meeting and it's 3 a.m. for her. She's just usually there. It's awesome. So thanks. No, she's done an absolutely wonderful job in her role. We are really lucky to have her as our communications officer, and she's fulfilling a very important role right now. I just wanted to say a few things about membership of the BOD and who they are. The first one is that I'd like everyone to understand is that we are not living in a fortress of solitude in Milpitas, California. I know it seems like that sometimes, and every time you people talk about the board in a less than complimentary manner, sometimes people will actually motion toward California. We don't live there. We're all over the country. We are from many kingdoms, and we want different kingdom participation. Want to be very broad in terms of what we look at for membership. Over the past couple of years, we actually have had a real difficult time meeting. It's become a bit of a problem for us. Of course, with COVID, we can't meet. It's probably not safe to do so, and it's financially not responsible for us to do that when we're going through what is a very lean time for the SC in terms of revenue. So that's been right out. But we've all become quite used to meeting online. There's some benefits now. Quarterly meetings, by a matter of course, are public and on like a go-to meeting or a webinar kind of setting, so that more people have access to that. We think that's a fantastic idea. But it's really important to understand that all the people that are on the board are just regular folks that you know in your kingdom. And if you think that you are not special enough to be a board member, then you are very, very wrong. And if you have a desire to serve the SCA in this manner, then I would certainly encourage you to put your name in the hat. It's really a fun experience. I have met people that are dedicated to the SCA, that love it fiercely, love the game, want to see the game continue, and are working hard to try to make sure that happens for all of us.
Thank you. And you've mentioned that you guys are all volunteers. So that means there's no compensation. You guys we were not being bought off on the side by lobbyists of the on-tier lobby. Yes, please clarify. So
I'd like to answer that again if it's not too much trouble. Dale, unless Dale, you want to go first?
Oh, he's watching me suspiciously.
Go right ahead, Dan.
So no, there are some officers that receive stipends. Some of the officers on the corporate side do receive a salary, like for example, the people that run the corporate office. Board members are not compensated for the time that they spend on this. They, in days past and probably days future, they are compensated for travel. There are a few other things that we do. There's an allowance that are given to new board members to purchase a device to allow them to use email. There's a little bit of legal consideration involved in that. It usually is not enough to buy something. You typically will have to put money in yourself to make it happen. They will, like I said, when we do meet in person, the SCA would pay for our airline tickets, our hotel, travel, and meals. Although, to be honest, a lot of us don't turn in receipts because we're very mindful of the fact that we're spending the folks' money. This is money that comes in through NMS fees and through membership fees, and every time we spend money, that's someone's fee for a year. And I can't speak for all the board members, of course, but I'm extraordinarily mindful anytime that the SCA has to reimburse me. I don't like it. I think we should save our money for other things, but some of it we have to do in order to run a corporation.
I appreciate that, but I also appreciate the fact that that kind of assistance does allow for accessibility for members. We've had the conversation before. As landed baronage, we travel quite a bit, and it does add up. So I really appreciate the fact that the SBA supports travel for the board, because that does mean that people who might not necessarily have the same financial means still have access to the position, which means that they also have access to being a voice. And that may be one of my soapboxes.
It is, I would like to thank you all, because I know from a baronage standpoint, anybody who serves, whether it's king and queen, prince, princess, baron, baroness, seneschal, you do a lot of traveling, and it is not while we don't get compensated, and technically we don't get charged to hold these positions, it does cost a lot of money to hold these positions with travel and time. And so thank you so much for serving. You're keeping the game going, and a lot of it I know is out of your own pocket, and we appreciate that.
And I'm actually going to segue from that to a question here, which is referring to the corporate office. Why do we need a corporate office? I mean, we're talking about these positions, but I mean, can't we just run it at a kingdom level? What could possibly, yes, out of a shoebox, because the IRS, I worked for revenue before. They don't mind at all. No. So why wouldn't we be able to run it at like a kingdom level?
Well, there are a lot of different considerations. For one, our organization is incorporated. It allows us to get insurance. It allows us to be organized nationally and to work with our affiliates. And those are important and essential processes. It allows us to collect money from all over the country and make the organization work, to buy and maintain some of the items that we use at Penzik and different large wars. They're all necessary from the corporate perspective. There are also legal challenges that our organization may face from time to time, and having that corporate structure to do that is essential. And frankly, to be able to function on a state-to-state national level, you need to have an overarching board that can deal with all the myriad of different legal issues. This current pandemic is a prime example of the challenge that you face with multiple countries and numerous states all having different policies, different states, different provinces having different policies, and having to structure rules that can work for as many of us as possible.
I just want to add a few things also that really Dale touched upon, and that is that we have to think of ourselves as an international organization, and trying to keep, making sure that we have that international footprint allows us to do things that simply wouldn't be possible if we were trying to organize this on a kingdom by kingdom basis. As a member of the society, I can pick up my gear and I can fly to a war on the other side of the country or on the other side of the world, and I have a reasonable expectation that I can participate in using the rules that I know. And so this has been, being able to do that, being able to know that the funds that I contribute as a member for my membership fees, that those are dealt with in a manner that is responsible and provides us protection from I don't know quite how to say it, action that is not 100% legal. I won't say that we have people acting malevolently, but it takes a lot to make sure that we're all on the right side of the laws and regulations that apply to us. Additionally, having a national organization gives us an opportunity to have membership cards that are membership cards and information and registration that passes among all the different kingdoms, that we have services that are provided to us, such as the national newsletter, access to other kingdom newsletters, which we provide for free. There's no cost for all the kingdom newsletters if you aren't aware of this. This one, you can log on to www.sca.org and you can get access to the newsletters. There was one other thing I was going to think of also. Let's see, membership card, newsletters. Things like the SCAR system. So this is something that we see happening in the future in the SCA more and more. It's quite common for me now if I go to kingdom events or events in other kingdoms, that it's becoming easier for me to log on to the website and select the event, make a reservation, pay my money via PayPal, and I have assurance that that is going to be valid when I step up to the door at that particular event. So there's a lot of advantages that we have for doing this. We have looked at trying to completely get rid of the corporate office and has turned into an electronic office. We don't think we're there yet. It's not a bad idea, but when we have to send out mail, we have to receive mail, we have stock items that we deal with, we do printing, we do a lot of operations that happen in the corporate office. And so I know I'm a little far out from your question, but I'll just put a little plug in here. One of the things that we have recently done is to try to move toward a smaller office footprint. We changed physical locations. We downgraded the office that we have. We got rid of a lot of stock. John Fulton, the society president, Renee, and Teresa, the people that we're working on, and Louise Ducray and Natalia, I have not met her yet, are working very hard to try to reduce our corporate cost footprint, something we care a lot about trying to do. Sorry, I was a little long-winded. Please forgive me.
And Dan, when you talked about getting rid of the corporate office, you basically mean the physical office space, so moving to a virtual space. So there's always going to be a need for us to have certain administrative responsibilities. And there are economies of scale that happen when the society is able to respond to that as a society, as an incorporated body. So that's sort of where those elements are. But we're constantly looking for opportunities to make sure that we're being ethical and effective and efficient. Those are the really big words that are constantly reiterated by the board to corporate officers. And those are words that the corporate officers keep in mind. So as Dan and Dale both touched on, we're working for the membership, even if it's not in a paid role. and for our participants to make sure it's the best possible game. So it's really looking at those opportunities that you only get if you're a global society with an incorporated body and affiliates that support it.
Wonderful, thank you.
I had a question about like accessibility. Who has access to the board meeting? Who can participate in the board meeting? Who can observe the board meeting? Where do I find out information about what happened at the board meeting?
So I'm going to plug SCA.org at this point. Hopefully all of you are very familiar with it from having bought memberships or being able to find information. But the whole point of, and possibly one of the benefits that has come out of the pandemic has been that we've had a greater take up of technology, which means that we're able to be more accessible in terms of how we get information out. So every quarter there's a quarterly board meeting, and the board publicizes the dates of those meetings. You can pre-register to attend those meetings via a webinar system at the moment. And then we watch it, you're able to be there. We take questions. There's normally a Q&A space at the end of the meeting once the meeting's closed that people are able to put in questions at that point. Those meetings are then, because they're recorded, because we want as many people as possible to understand what goes on in running SCA Inc. and the Society. So that goes up on the Society's YouTube channel, and we normally tell people about that on our social media channels and on the website. And then if you're able to actually, when possible, there are sometimes opportunities at events where board meetings are held at events or in locations when it's safe to do so. But I would say that anything going forward will probably be hybrid. And as Dan and Dale both touched on, at the moment, it's not the safest thing to be doing, and it's definitely not the most responsible thing to be doing economically. So we're looking at making sure they stay virtual for a while rather than moving to a hybrid model. Dan, Dale, did I give away the homeworld at any point?
Sounds good.
Well, Brigid, we had discussed beforehand, I was going to allow you to ask questions too, but we've been dominating the meeting. I mean, so you're more than welcome to pipe in any questions you feel that we should be asking as well.
I was going to comment really quickly though. It does sound, I have to say, my expectation of the walled fortress in Milpitas, wherein you guarded all of the secrets of the Society, I'm very disappointed to find that you are in fact trying to be very transparent and that I actually have access to this information if I would go and look for it. That is an illusion that has just been shattered. Thank you. Because I do think that is something that sometimes, again, I work for the government. It's a similar thing. We publicize the information, but if people don't know or don't think to go look for the information themselves, sometimes it can feel a little more hidden than it might actually be.
It is much easier to blame the faceless, evil people.
They're right there. No, we can see their faces.
Stopping us from having fun when I don't.
They're right there.
I think that's also one of the interesting things in terms of that like we know that in any administrative role or in any role, like people are more likely to tell you about the things they're not happy with than the things they are happy with. So the board really likes the fact that if you think about the thousands of activities that happen all around the world, all over different times, those are actually all happening because the supporting structures are in place. Sure, we see the blow-ups and the things when people aren't particularly happy, but the proportion is actually really quite different. There's a couple of questions in the chat that I'm just going to bring up. Dale and Dan, sort of how much time would you spend a week noting that COVID's made things a little different in this sort of thing on sort of board related work?
I'd say somewhere between 10 to 20 hours a week. It can be more than that if we're right before a meeting or right after a meeting, but that's typically we'll spend probably around 10 to 20 hours a week. I'd say is the normal level.
That's about right. I think it's a little bit more before a quarterly conference meeting because we have, as Dan pointed out earlier, a voluminous amount of paperwork to go through and 2 days of meetings.
And I'm going to flip the sort of thing and thinking about that. So I'd like you to think about if you had to say what was the best thing about being a member of the board and what would the worst thing be about being a member of the board.
I don't think there's a worst thing for me. There are parts of being on the board that is challenging. And I'll tell you, for me, the two most challenging things. We are very different, strong-willed and opinionated people. And being that we are meeting virtually can sometimes be challenging. And it's very hard on us because we have a lot of issues that impact sometimes a small number of people and sometimes a large number of people, and we want to get it right. And everybody has strong opinions about that, and sometimes going back and forth without that in-person human connection can be really, really, really challenging. A lot of new people have come onto the board during the course of the pandemic, and we haven't had the opportunity to have that face-to-face learning, all the nonverbal forms of the nonverbal expressions that we have in communicating. It's all lost in a virtual world, and it makes some of those more challenging conversations harder on us. And that's why you'll see that many of the board members are now pulling out of pocket and trying to get together for board meetings on their own during the pandemic, so that we can have that face-to-face and we can work through those issues in a less impersonal virtual way. The other thing that I find challenging is that while I recognize that we are sort of a lightning rod and we have to make those hard decisions, which are not always popular, some of the vitriolic comments that come in, really, it's disheartening for people who are volunteering to take time away from their families, to take time away from their lives, to put aside personal struggles that they may be going through at a time, to go to a meeting, to deal with an issue that is important for the thousands of people that encompasses the SCA, and to spend all that time and do all that work and then hear, what are you idiots thinking, is just, it's hard. It's hard, especially for people who have been here for years, like Dan, who has, they've weathered the storm that I'm just getting into as a board member for about a year now. It's hard. But the best thing, the best thing that I think that we do is we get to make this great thing happen. Like, we get to, for lack of a better way of putting it, we stand on the wall and we deal with all the legal and all the mundane crap that we have to deal with, so that everybody else can go out and do this thing that they love, that they enjoy, and see the people that they are passionate about seeing, and do the things that they're passionate about doing in an environment that is just open and welcome, and it's just amazing. And I love that. I love that. For all the difficult parts we have of this, being able to do that for so many people is just, it's phenomenal.
I see the joy. I see the joy in your face when you say that.
I was gonna say, you lit up right there. That was fabulous.
And I'd like to add to that one of the things that I have really enjoyed about being on the board is getting to meet with and work with some of the most incredible individuals that I have ever had the experience to be a part of something with. Each one of these people, all the corporate officers, all the other board members, they are all driven, they're passionate. This is an incredibly important thing to all of us. And so we do work quite hard, and we talk to each other, and we try to convince each other. There have been many times when I've stepped into a board meeting with one feeling, and after listening to my colleagues, I came away with something else. It's just a phenomenal experience, and it's one that I'm really going to miss. But I'm also going to miss the hate mail, to be honest. I really have. I really love now. At first, it used to really hurt, and now maybe I'm a little jaded. But every now and then, I'll get like a real zinger, like someone will send something, and they'll call us, some really incredible names. But you just have to You just have to sort of take it and laugh and hope you meet them in person someday.
With revenue, I was called a lizard person one time in an angry email. So yes, people get quite creative when they're upset.
I do say I appreciate you guys so much. I do know how difficult it is, especially in the last couple of years when we haven't been able in society and outside the society, we have not been able to meet in person. We've done so much virtual, and it's so easy to lose our humanity when we're just yelling at a screen and we're not interacting on a personal basis and seeing the faces of people that we disagree with.
And I don't know how long we are. Do I have time for a comment about a good way to write to the board if you're interested in doing that?
You know, we don't really limit time. So, you know, we'll go until you guys are sick of us and say, you know, I really need to deal with my family right now.
So we're
Okay.
just coming up on the hour, and I'm aware that Dan and Dale, both of you mentioned that there's a couple of commitments, so we probably won't go too long, because you've got to get on with the rest of the things that you've got with your day. But definitely, I think there's time for Dan to be able to add in his 2 cents.
Yes, please.
Just really quickly, if you're considering writing to the board, and I encourage you to do so, SCA-comments@sca.org. Is that right, Brigid? Then send email. All the directors will read your email. It's something that comes in and we sort of look forward to. But if you're interested in writing to the board and giving your comments, I would recommend that you give both your mundane name and your SCA name, that you are concise and polite. And it's really nice if you sort of break it up into paragraphs also. That would be great. If there's nothing, you know, if I get like a 3-page long paragraph, I really don't know where to start and where to stop. So I would do that. Make your points clear and provide some context and the reasoning behind what your particular comment is. I think that would be great if you do that.
Well, thank you.
Can I just jump in for a second? There's a question in the comments that I'd really like to address. The question is, basically the question is, how is the process going in terms of promoting inclusivity? I just want to say that we have a board that is committed to increasing inclusivity and the diversity of the organization. We have even changed some of our questions over the years when we are looking at new board members during the interview process to specifically ask them about their commitment to increasing diversity and inclusivity in the game. And that is, it's a cornerstone of what we're doing as an organization. And in terms of the rest of the question, is the process complete, halfway done, or 3/4 done? It's never done. There's never enough inclusivity. There's never enough diversity. And we will be working on that at every quarterly meeting, every day, every year, to increase our diversity, to increase our membership, and make it better for everyone.
Just to sort of, one of the directions that officers get really clearly from the board is how we can look at making the game more inclusive, but also how can we be as transparent as is possible within the environment that we are in, to be able to explain to everybody what is actually happening and why it is happening as well. So that is something that the board is actively looking at and constantly looking at ways to improve.
Thank you.
Well, I know some of our panelists had other things going on today,
Yes.
so
May
he
I-
looked at me because I'm capable of talking for hours. So
Can I just jump to one thing that Brigid just said that I know is important, and it's the issue of transparency. One of the difficulties with always hearing that term is that people want different types of transparency, different transparency on different issues. And it's a little bit problematic, because what people want to know basically is what's going on, whether it's an issue that we have to keep private under the sanctions process, or whether it's an issue that we have to keep private because of a legal process and we can't comment without putting the organization at risk. It's a challenging tightrope to walk, because we do want to let people know what's going on. We do want the membership to understand what is happening from a process level, from a legal level, in as many areas as we can. And I can tell you that Brigid has been striving for that. Jessica Van Hattem, our DEI officer, has been striving to get those things through. And we are, as a board, constantly looking at what can we share? How can we share this information? How can we make ourselves more approachable to the membership? And we hear you. We take those things seriously, but we ask that you understand and recognize that there is a limit to how far we can do that, because there are legal constraints, there are operational constraints, and we are only able to go so far. And we constantly reevaluate that and constantly look at ways that we can provide information to you that is fair for the membership, fair for the corporation, and for individuals as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And if you don't know Jessica, Jessica is awesome. So I think we'll wrap things up. Do we have any final thoughts before we end this meeting?
No.
I'd like to say I'm really looking forward to getting back out there on the field and in the campgrounds and at the event centers with all of you, so that we can share these times in person again. I know we're getting there. We're opening back up. A lot of events are happening. We're just sort of tentatively working our way back into this. I think it's the right approach. Kingdoms know what they're doing, and where possible, they're on to your west war. I hear you. I'm going to make it out there someday. Then it has been, as I sort of wrap up, it's really been an honor being a board member and working with the society. It's a wonderful organization. We've been doing what we've been doing for 50 years now, 40, 50, and we're going to make it happen for another 50 years. So thank you, all of you, for the work that you are doing, and the individual ways that you are making us the best society ever. Thanks.
Thank you, Dan.
And if I can, I would like to say a couple of things. First of all, a very large and gregarious thank you to Liz Schreier, our Society Seneschal, who has been working tirelessly above and beyond the call of duty and then some to keep our organization functional, to help us get through our struggles during COVID and to deal with all the different issues and variances that she's had to do over these past few months. She is outstanding. I would also like to add to the peerage of the known world, as we shift into a virtual world, a hybrid, it is important that we remember to bring our concepts of chivalry off the field and into the virtual world, and to hold ourselves, our fellow peers, our students, and our membership accountable to those concepts of chivalry, so that our discourse on the virtual platform is respectful and pleasant and courteous, the same way we would do if we were in person at an event, because that is the future of our game. That is where we are going. There will be a hybrid with us forever, I hope. And we need to bring chivalry with us into that world. And I ask you all to really invest some time in focusing on that, because it's what makes us. It's what makes our events a great place to be. And we need to do that in the virtual world as well. Thank you guys for having me here. This is the first time I get to speak as chair of the board, and it's been super awesome and cool.
Thank you, Dale. Brigid, do you have final words? I will end the recording afterwards, and then anybody who wants to stick around.
I have after Brigid.
Okay, that's fine.
Don't worry, he edits it out.
When in doubt, Clovis, listen to your Baroness. From one landed Baroness to another, I got you, sister. We're all good. So just a couple of things. As you've heard both Dale and Dan say, we are very much here as an organization to listen to the needs of everybody. So I will let you know that the directors read every comment that comes into SCA comments. So like if you have something to say, please share it. As they said, be great if you could share it respectfully and courteously. That'd be really good. And punctuation rocks our world. Just saying, you know, just makes it a little easier. The other thing that I would say is if you have ever thought that you might be in a position to help, you know, look at your offices, look at what's going on in your local environment, in your kingdom, but also maybe consider the next time you see the SCA is talking about that we're looking for nominations for the board of directors. We're looking for nominations for officers. So these are opportunities. We are all members of this great society that spans a globe. And, you know, it only gets that way because we all contribute. So please pay attention and nominate. And if you see that person that you think they'd be awesome, why not tap them on the shoulder and suggest that maybe they put their hand up?
Thank you so much. I appreciate the fact that you've all taken time to sit down and talk about this with us and go into such depth about things. It's definitely given me a better understanding of how all of the different pieces work. And I appreciate the fact that you've been willing to be faces for us. You know, you people usually don't have faces. And so the opportunity to see the faces of our corporate officers and our board of directors and to have interface and see how have interface with you is a wonderful opportunity. And I really appreciate the fact that you joined us and took time out of your schedules. So thank you again for that.
Yes, thank you.
And with that, I think he will free us all.